So the number of people involved in the field of MLD is really growing up exponentially. No. Okay. This demonstrates how many advances we had in the last few years, and but many activities ongoing and still challenges to cover. So I don't need to introduce the disease, but just to underline that some points that are important for next discussions. So we know that the disease is caused by accumulation of sulfatides in multiple tissues, but we know that there is also other pathogenic processes ongoing, neuroinflammation, neurodegeneration, and involvement of other tissues. What is really relevant also is to know that we usually describe the patients according to the age of onset, but if we are moving to a newborn screening phase, we should learn how to predict disease phenotype that is quite homogeneous in the early onset phase, but really heterogeneous in the late onset variants. It's not so easy. And the other point is that we need to recognize the very early symptoms that are usually very subtle, insidious, and lead to a delayed diagnosis in the majority of patients. We know exactly the disease course in the early onset forms, with a stagnation of motor milestones and a rapid deterioration of motor and cognitive functions. But again, the late onset phenotypes are really heterogeneous, and the majority of them probably cognitive and psychiatric phenotypes. The heat map lead us to understand that we had in the last few years very important advances in terms of disease-modifying therapies, but we are a little bit behind in clinical pathway of our patients and access to treatment, access to diagnosis and treatment of our patients. If the therapeutic heat maps help us to understand that what is the major advances was the approval of a treatment, a new treatment, but is interconnected with many others successful activities, such as the advocacy activities, and also the planning of the clinical trials that was fundamental. This is just a unique slide to show the length and the challenge of developing the treatment that lead to approval in Europe in 2020 of the hematopoietic stem cell gene therapy for MLD, and in 2024 also in US. It was important work involving researchers at the beginning in clinical studies, clinicians, many MLD families, but also required the support at the beginning of MLD Foundation and then companies, first GSK and now Orchard Therapeutics. So in a single slide, I just want to summarize the results supporting the marketing authorization, just to recall that we have data that support the long-term efficacy of the treatment, preserving motor and cognitive function in all the three subgroups, but the main benefits are been observed in the pre-symptomatic phase, so we have to fight to treat patients before onset of symptoms. And currently there are several centers qualified across Europe and US. So we are entering a new phase, post-marketing phase, that open new challenges. In fact, we are in front of an approved treatment. This advance was made also thanks to the contribution of advocacy groups that support with the testimony and Maria this morning explained how important was the voice of patients and families in this process, and in Europe also for the price reimbursement negotiation, but also the international collaboration of experts was fundamental and remain fundamental in the next future. At the beginning, we developed a single center natural history studies, but now we have understood that we need international patient registries, and these are the examples, the MLD initiative and the GLIA initiative that support the characterization of the disease and the validation of outcome measures that are fundamental for design of clinical trial, but then at the end of the process, the interaction of regulatory authorities. Having an approved treatment open multiple challenges. Now is mandatory to have access to the diagnosis and the early diagnosis. So awareness about early diagnosis is fundamental, and we have to better understand and define the early symptoms that can be a red flag to have access to early diagnosis. The MLD community recognized many limitations. We know that the main limitation is that the treatment is available in Europe, and US has high costs, so many geographical areas at the moment are excluded from the treatment. And then many people in the work group underline that we have still no treatment, no access to treatment for symptomatic patients, and no indication for late onset. Moving to the post-marketing phase and multiple centers, there is this need of harmonization of the long-term follow-up. We have to continue to collect solid post-marketing and long-term follow-up data that should be comparable between centers. So as group of experts, we have to continue to work to this harmonization. And then someone has already spoke about transition to adulthood. We are transforming life of early onset form of MLD, and these children are moving to the adult age with new medical need, new social need, and so we have to involve an adult neurologist that now have to take care to different phenotype. They were used to cognitive and psychiatric phenotypes that we have to educate them to take care also of patient treated with gene therapy. Maybe I can skip my slides about newborn screening because Maria and the others this morning go in detail in this process. Just want to underline the main steps done, but something still to be done toward implementation worldwide of the newborn screening. So first the essays. The last 2 years we concentrate on refine the essays for the newborn screening of MLD, and the great advances was an international collaboration to agree on the same methods to do the newborn screening. The second step is really relevant to predict the disease phenotype at birth. We have said that there is a heterogeneity and compound heterozygosis that does not allow sometimes to predict the phenotype. So we need to study new tools for that. Through this step, we finally succeed in identifying the first patients, first MLD patients through newborn screening, and this opened the door to the submission to the RASP, and the first country that introduced newborn screening, that is Norway. Another challenge we worked a lot in the last year is really an example of great collaboration was reaching a consensus on how to follow patients, identify newborn screening, and when to treat. And we developed this consortium through MLD initiatives where we this treatment eligibility panel where we can discuss new cases, newborn screening case, but also other patients with difficult treatment decisions. These are main milestones and collaborative work. The last part of the presentation regards the clinical pathways, so unmet clinical needs that are fundamental, as has been said, for ILD, for Krabbe, and so on, the treatment of symptomatic patients. And we distinguish symptomatic and supportive care and new disease-modifying care. We are all convinced that we have to focus on quality of life, build multidisciplinary teams, but probably another step could be to collect real-world data on treatment use in symptomatic patients to write and build common guidelines that can be applied not only in expert center but on local side, and also we have to try to guarantee this kind of supportive cares also in developing countries. Regarding disease-modifying treatment, we have to split symptomatic early onset. The failure of the intrathecal enzyme replacement therapy on the primary endpoint suggests that we have to change the design of our clinical trial, moving to quality of life outcomes and also, I would say, patient-reported outcomes. On the other hand, for late onset, we have to clarify better the phenotypes, and probably we are just discussing last week in a meeting, a workshop, new biomarkers that can help predict the outcome of a treatment, because they are very long-lasting disease and short trial are not able to give us relevant outcomes in terms of clinical outcomes. In the end, we have to come back to preclinical studies if we want to enlarge the windows of our treatments. We have to go through again to the pathophysiology of the disease, the myelination phase through life, but also neuroinflammation and neurodegeneration. We have to look if some cells are more vulnerable to the disease and to some treatments, and review also the mechanism of the treatment available, so approved, to refine and improve the outcomes and better select the patients, but also try to target other aspects of the disease, such as neuroinflammation. We have many tools available. We are under evaluations. We need to refine also the preclinical models using human models, and we continue to need the support of families through donation of samples and sharing data, also data about long-term follow-up after treatments. Thank you.